Well, hello and welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Your Blank What Now podcast. My name's Marcy Nettles, and I am your host. I am so excited to be able to bring you these weekly episodes with phenomenal stories with people that have gone through a bunch of crap, and yet they've made decisions or just done something different than they were doing before to be able to break through into the future that they would like instead of just settling or feeling stuck where they were. So we hope that these episodes will come to you and be able to enlighten you wherever you are in your walk in this life, to be able to give you inspiration, give you some knowledge, and maybe a starting point to get you on your way to your own personal breakthrough. So my guests are always amazing. And yet today, this guest has just really settled on my heart in a different way. We've really gotten to know each other a little bit, and I feel that she has a message that people are not aware of, and yet every single one of us needs to take it very seriously. So please lean in today, What Now Tribe, because you're going to hear something that you've probably never heard before. And if you have, you're going to hear it in a little bit of a different way. So Kim Rogers is my guest today. She is a seasoned wellness professional with over 18 years of experience in Western medicine. Kim has dedicated her career to advancing medical knowledge and improving patient care. Throughout her extensive tenure in the medical field, she has authored numerous medical publications, contributed to National Allied Health certification tests, and provided valuable insights as a member of medical advisory boards. Kim's journey in the medical field took an unexpected turn when her own health challenges led her on a transformative path. Inspired by her own healing journey, Kim founded RogersHood Apothecary, in December of 2021. And invented the globally known best-selling Parafy Parasite Cleanse Kit. Driven by her passions, Kim aims to empower individuals to become patient advocates for their own health. By sharing her experiences and knowledge, she invites you to embark on your own journey. So I'm so excited to have you here with me today, Kim. Thank you so much for saying yes.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So we're going to talk about some really serious things because this is going to be your personal story, and it's very vulnerable share, very much so. And together we actually came up with the title for your episode, which people are going to be like, what? The title is You're Full of Worms. What now? Exactly, right? Exactly. So before we get into all the worminess of this episode, can you please share more about who you, Kim, who you are, and what your life and expertise was before you found yourself in your health crisis?
Yeah. Well, that was a great introduction. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So I just love the human body, and I've also been chronically ill my whole life. My mom was chronically ill, so it kind of led me down to fully understand medicine and the body. And I decided in 2004 to go to school to get my license as a medical specialist. And I was sick during that time. I had stage 4 endometriosis. I've actually had 13 surgeries and a hysterectomy. So I personally know what it feels like to be gaslit by the Western medicine world, as well as be in the Western medicine world. So I've been able to kind of see both sides of it. And they just couldn't tell me any answers. So I just kept digging. And, I'm 45 years old and I've dug my whole life now looking to see what could else be wrong with me. And I did find it. But I went into Western medicine and I worked in the field, and then I transitioned to academia, and I was a professor, and I helped run 25 healthcare colleges. I authored a bunch of books because I have a lot of knowledge and I understand things, I think, in a different way where it helps break it down for people to fully understand as well. So I really feel like that's helped me in this journey that I'm in right now with social media.
Yes.
And I decided to kind of take a break and find out what was wrong with me, because I was really kind of circling the drain, as we say, in the field. I was not doing well at all. And in around 2019, my husband left his career and I left mine, and I went to our property to build a log home and to self-heal. So that's kind of how all of this got started.
So interesting. I love, first of all, that you have such a vast medical background because you understand the human body pretty well, at least from that medical side story, right?
Yeah.
Yet I'm really kind of baffled. I mean, after those 13 surgeries, you weren't healed?
No. And in fact, what made us go even further was I couldn't have any more surgeries because I had created so much scar tissue in my abdomen. I created so many adhesions from my endometriosis. Then I was diagnosed with adenomyosis because that's scar tissue disease. So I was starting to create more of a problem than I was just going in and having surgeries. They just couldn't figure out why. Well, now I know why. But at the time, no one really talks to you in Western medicine about diet, parasite cleansing. Could it be mold? Could it be Lyme? Which now I know it's parasites, mold, and Lyme that was wrong with me. So really, it's kind of like they just don't have that understanding. And I knew that. And so it just got to a point where I needed to figure it out on my own.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. I just kind of figured it out on my own.
Yeah, you know what? And that is so fantastic. And it's very much like what we were talking about in your intro, in people becoming their own self advocates. It is so important for people to be empowered to look into things for themselves, not just to trust, because I mean, it's a fact, okay? They say practicing medicine for a reason
Yeah.
because
Mhm.
doctors do not know everything. They're trying to do their best. I will say there are some
Yes,
fabulous doctors out there. They are
I
trying
agree.
to do their best, but every human being is so unique and different that there's not one answer that
Yeah, there's
fits.
not.
Not
It's
at all.
it's different. Each one of them's different. And everyone has a different lifestyle. They have a little bit of a different gene. So I feel really honored to be able to actually bring traditional medicine in with Western medicine. And I know that's what's made this whole thing so successful is that I do have that background. And I not only have an associate's in medical specialties, but I also have a bachelor's in healthcare management. So I really have dedicated my whole life to like understanding medicine and the body. And I might not have every single alphabet behind my name like an MD, but I have almost just as much schooling as a lot of them. And now I have like life schooling from all of this that I learned as I was going through it, which, by the way, I really did not like parasites in the field. I left urgent care because I did not like parasites. And here I am, the worm queen, looking at worms every day.
Isn't that hilarious how life has turned? That is just so phenomenal. And yet, I mean, you were so sick. I mean, you've mentioned all these surgeries, everything that was done to where you couldn't do anything more. You were actually at the point that you weren't even sure you were going to live. Can
Yeah.
you really share and dive a little bit deeper, be really vulnerable about what this time frame was like in your life and what happened and what was it that you endured?
So in 2019, my husband and I couldn't take care of myself much more. I wasn't cooking. Most chronically ill people know it's really hard to take a shower and wash your hair. It takes a lot out of you. I couldn't do laundry anymore. I was working from home doing recruiting, but like you get paid commissions for that. So we were really in a one income household at that point. I left being a director of a couple colleges where we were making we were making living. We had our own home. And so we decided that it was time for me to rest one way or the other. And I wanted to make sure that my husband wasn't left with a lot of medical bills, that he could go and work just like a part-time, full-time job after we built our log home. So around 2018, when I was like, this is really what we have to do, we bought our property. We owned a piece of recreational property. We bought it in 2016. And we started the process of building our own home where he could do that if something happened to me. So we started to kind of gear ourselves up to move out to our recreational property. And that's what we did. We ended up moving out there in 2019 and we hand built our own log home. We actually just finished it 2 weeks ago.
Yay.
Um, yeah, it's so exciting. So I just felt like he had taken care of me and gave up a lot in his life that when I wasn't around anymore, I wanted him to be taken care of. So my mission was to be mortgage and debt free for him so he could just build the house and get a normal job and, do the things that you do if something happened to me. And so, our goal really was to get out there and heal me, which is what happened, but we
Yes.
were ready to go.
So that was your goal, and yet you've mentioned this already like 3 or 4 times. If something happens to me, or I didn't want him to have a lot of debt if I wasn't here. So you really, in the back of your mind, thought that you may not make it, right?
It was bad. It was really bad. So I hadn't pooped in a month and I was on Klonopin, and I had been on Klonopin off and on for 22 years. I was on the highest dose, 4 milligrams, and I wanted to get off of it. And I actually had a mini stroke while I was getting off of it. So there was just a lot of things that like were transpiring as we were trying to get me off of Big P and not pooping for a month and having our doctors basically abandon me. When I messaged one of my doctors and said that I haven't pooped in a month, she just said, go try some psyllium husk. And I'm like, it's more than this. Like something else is going on. I was over 260 pounds. No matter what I did, I couldn't lose weight. My face was always broken out, but I used really nice face products. So I never really understood what was going on with me. And that was frustrating because I've always been a pretty good person in the medical field of like, this is what's wrong, this is what's wrong. But when it comes to me, I just wasn't.
Okay. So you're now out in the woods,
Yeah.
and you're first, I mean, you have, it's like I'm just seeing these two wolves, right? The good wolf that's, you've got this, we can figure this out. Let's go learn something. Let's go fight for your life. And then the wolf on this side is like, oh, you're just here because it's time for you to go. And
Yeah.
the doctors did all they could do. And that good and bad, that light and dark that we're talking about that's in our lives sometimes. Yet you chose that strong wolf, and you learned a lot of things. First of all, I mean, you've talked about worms, you've talked about parasites, you've talked about mold. How did this stuff come up onto your radar, first of all? What did you learn? And what was it that helped you? And how did you decide to become an advocate for so many other people?
So about 5 years ago, almost six now, I thought I had pinworms, but my doctors all said, no, that's impossible. And I'm the generation where when I'd see something, I'd screenshot it so I could go back to it later. Well, after all of this has gone down and I went viral, I went back and looked and I had screenshotted colonics for parasites. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I thought I had worms a while ago. They wanted to do a biopsy in my nether regions. And she said, come back in 10 days. It'll still be there. I'll have time. And when I got back, there wasn't anything there. And it was the same year that I also had a weird spot in my breast. So I'd get a mammogram and was going to get a biopsy. And then it was gone again. Well, now I know that that was because I had parasites and worms. I have physical worms. So parasites are microscopic, and then physical worms are, you can see them. So I had pinworms, roundworms. And so now I know that that's what everyone was seeing, but it's just so denied in Western medicine. All right. So going back. So I thought I had parasites before, so this really wasn't like too far of a reach for me. But this whole thing that after I went viral, that's the part that's the weirdest.
Seriously.
So in 2020, I decided to get off of my Klonopin and really kind of see. I was going to be diagnosed with Parkinson's. I was having Parkinson's behavior. I was having the stare. I was having the twitching. And I was having a lot of brain fog. And so they were going to send me to an MRI and get another scan of my brain. There's multiple different types of scans when you have Parkinson's. And then also they were going to put me on some medication. But before I went down that road, I said, let me get off of my Klonopin because I've heard that these can be side effects of long-term use of Klonopin. So there we are. I started the process, and then I had a mini stroke, but really, I feel like it was just an upgrade. I kind of know that even though I had a mini stroke, it wasn't necessarily blood-induced stroke. It was mold, which we were living in a travel trailer while we were building our log home. So travel trailers are notorious for mold. And then also our water is contaminated up in my neighborhood there with nematodes, which we had tested positive for once all of this. Again, we'll go into the more of the story, but once all of that came about, we realized that now there was a combination of things that were going on with me in 2021. And so I fought through it. It got to a point where I couldn't wash myself. I couldn't feed myself. I couldn't walk very well or very long. I had to have assistance. My husband did all of the things. He did all of the caretaking. He cooked, he cleaned. He also was building our log home, and he was supporting me while we were researching what else could go wrong. We were growing mushrooms like lion's mane, turkey tail, reishi to kind of help so that I had the real fruiting body in my system. I just started really researching exactly what could help me along the way. And then in May of 2021, I came across a TikTok that she said she almost offed herself over worms. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. And so she started listing all of the things that could be wrong with her. And I'm like, wait a minute, I have a lot of those. Like, I have flare ups during the full moon. I have terrible anxiety. I have floaters. I have terrible breakouts on my skin. I grind my teeth. I have terrible IBS. Yes, I've been constipated for a month. I'm like, whoa, I think that this could be something that is wrong with me. And maybe this is my answer, because at this point now I'm trying to lose some weight because I'd gotten so heavy. Mold also causes a lot of conflict with that. So does parasites. And so it just kind of started to show me what was really wrong with me. And then I did the cleanse, and within 3 days, I knew what was wrong with me. It was crazy when I looked in the toilet. Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry.
Flukes.
Yes, and it is crazy. And yes, when you're looking in the toilet and we're talking about having the number 2 stuff in there, but there's
Mine
more
was
than that.
pee.
Oh, yours
Mine
was
was pee.
pee.
So
Oh,
now I know again.
uh,
Okay, so in July of 2021, I decided to go on TikTok, and for 60 seconds, I had a TikTok at like 10,000 followers. I would show them how I was building my log home, and I would show them how to grow mushrooms. So I already had like an established wellness TikTok. And so
right.
I'm like, wow, I'm just gonna go and I'm gonna tell my followers what it looks like to deworm. And so I was like, I've been in the medical field for over 18 years and I've never dewormed myself. And then there were carcasses all over the toilet, and I saw pinworms, roundworm, flukes, because I was a salmon lover. I ate sushi like it was going out of style. And so I did this one video and it blew up within 2 hours. I had 1 million views. It actually shut my phone off because it was so many likes. My phone couldn't keep up. It shut me out of TikTok for a few hours. And then as soon as TikTok let me back in, I just ran with it. And I have been running every day since that video went viral in July of 2021.
Because you shared photos of your pee in the toilet with floaters. Oh my gosh. But that's amazing though, because and that's what I'm saying about what we're sharing here today.
Mhm.
I know that the majority of the people that are listening probably had no idea. They've heard of parasites, right? We've all heard of parasites, but we
Right.
think
Other countries.
yes, we think third
Mhm.
world countries, right?
Right.
Um,
Mexico. Even a
right.
worm, and they know, they're
Yeah.
smart. Their
Yeah.
water's contaminated. They know it. So that's kind of where it led me down. Like, well, what is causing all of this for me? Like, what is happening that is causing this? And at first, my husband was like, it's just like if you go to a soda machine that can have worms. So we probably caught it from that, or an ice machine. They don't clean it appropriately. No, 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 no. It literally led us down a wormhole of what is really happening to us. Like, and at first, when I first started cleansing, Jeremy said, we don't have worms. And I'm like, listen, that is a worm, but we vowed we'd never show each other's poop to each other. So I'm like, I'm going to just show you a picture of the worm that came out. And he was like, Kim, that, and I'm like, you can't not say that, Jeremy. Like, that is a worm. And he was like, all right. Then he started thinking about it. So then he realized that he also had parasites. So he hopped on a cleanse. And then I was like, I think it's in our water. And he's like, no. And I go, I think it's in our water, Jeremy. And he said, there's no way. So then I found a place that I could get my water tested, and it came back positive. So I had the same parasite as what our water had. And yeah, I mean, I needed to know why. Now, I don't think that my symptoms in life are just from contaminated water of where our recreational facility is. I do believe a lot of other things that I've figured out down this wormhole that I've been in for 3 years. I do believe that I had parasites prior to us living in that property, but I believe that it was exacerbated by the worm water. I also didn't drink the warm water. I just showered in it. I brushed my teeth with it. I would clean my produce with it. I have a retainer. So those little things giving me that exposure. Now I know I have Lyme, but those things caused me to have more and more health issues. But as I was realizing everything at the time, I'm like, oh my God, the worm water, like, so, and then I just kept showing everything on my account, and I grew like 200,000 followers within a couple of weeks, and I just started going viral since.
That is so fantastic. Seriously, it's so fantastic because I mean, on this journey, you went from being in the depths of illness to where you
Yeah.
thought that you were going to die to having an awareness, because that's where everything begins, right? Is because you became aware and then making a decision to, I love the pun, by the way, going down the wormhole. So funny to really dive into the information because you have to educate yourself. This is where you're being that self-advocate, right?
Yeah.
And then having that conversation with Jeremy, because it was so important for him to be on board and to understand what you were doing. I actually went through something very similar to this when I had breast implant illness, and, you know, the awareness, the education, bringing in Don D and helping
Yeah.
him to understand. But I mean, realizing that these toxic things or these worms or these parasites that are coming into your body, they have a stronghold
Mhm.
of wreaking havoc, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they can make you do things that you would never do. If you want to use like candida, which is a parasite as an example, it makes you crave sugar. Like our bodies really don't want sugar, but that parasite wants the sugar. You have toxoplasmosis, which is a parasite that makes a mouse cuddle up to a cat and then has the cat eat it because that's the next stage of toxo. And then the cat is like crazed, goes poop, and then you clean it and you then get toxo. They think that, they say that pregnant women shouldn't scoop poop out of a cat litter box, but actually it's everyone. Pregnancy doesn't just cause it, the cat causes it, and then they just don't want you to pass it to your fetus. That's why. But everyone can get toxo, and they have found that people that have toxoplasmosis have an inhibition of like understanding fear and sexual partners. Like there's a lot more to parasites than just, oh, they're a bunch of worms. They actually can control you. They have their own frequency and they want to lower your frequency. It's a vibration thing for them. And
Yeah.
so they want you to stay, sad and eating all of the bad things so they're alive, because that's
Yeah.
the goal, right? They're doing their job. Like they're meant to decompose. They're meant to go in and do these things, but when they get to a point where they're making you as ill as they made me and other people, and that's why we have our own company, because
Yes.
we wanted to help other people understand how to cleanse and how to feel your body in a different way, and to understand that like you're not supposed to be sick, that you're not supposed to always be in pain and in anxiety, and you're not supposed to be like that. Like our bodies are meant to heal. But when you have these environmental toxins that come in and wreak havoc on our bodies like that, like I had mold. So I did all the cleansing for a year, and then we had mold in our travel trailer while we were building our log home. And it really affected me in such a terrible way. My eyes started to swell shut. I lost half of my hair. Just it's hard when you have these toxins and you're trying to like, no, this is what's wrong with me. It's hard to kind of go in and do that. And so that's really where I started creating Rogers Hood. It's specifically because I was so alone when I was ill. I didn't have anybody to talk with. I didn't know where to go, what questions to ask. I just didn't even know. I was very reliant on my colleagues, which was Western medicine. So, I really wanted to have a safe place for people that have mold toxicity and breast implant syndrome and all of the issues that we see out there. It was really a goal for me. And I saw this when I was going viral. Like all of these people were flooding my comments saying, "Oh my gosh, that's how I felt." And then they'd go and do the cleanse and they would be like, "Oh my gosh, like I'm a totally different person now."
Yes. Yes. You know, and that's the interesting thing is that it's not just a few individuals that have worms or suffer from mold or even Lyme and all these different things. It's all of us.
Yeah.
We're all affected in one way or another from parasites and from worms, especially, and
Yeah.
probably mold. And then there are some that have Lyme that it is so drastic in their health So share the importance and the benefits of parasite cleansing for maintaining good health, first of all, but also how it can maybe even help someone recover their health.
So we're exposed on a daily basis. If you're not soaking your produce appropriately, if you're drinking contaminated water, showering in contaminated water, if you're basically walking outside barefoot, and I fully believe in grounding. So you should clean an area. I get this one a lot, right? Because everyone's like, grounding's so good. It is, but if your pet poops there and then it rains, those eggs will develop inside of the dirt, and then you're walking in that dirt and they go right into your pores of your feet, which there's like 125,000 pores in each of your feet. So it's just an opportunity for them to be able to go into the next phase of their life, which we're perfect hosts.
Yes.
So ground, but just clean an area with diatomaceous earth, and don't let your pets poop there, and, just be conscientious. Lakes. I live on 2 private lakes in my log home, and one of them has crypto. So when I jump in, I swallow water. So I had cryptosporidium parvium, I had pinworms, and I had roundworm. And my husband had defragilis and pinworm roundworm. So those are pretty common amongst the people here in Western medicine countries. These are pretty common things that we have going on. Usually it's something like eating raw meat or eating fish. Fish are notorious for worms because it's natural for them. I live across the street from a fish market where they throw fish, and I've interviewed them and they look at me like, yeah, all fish have worms, Kim. And I'm like, okay, well, it's closer to the belly where the most worms are. So not cooking your meat appropriately, like pork. Pork is notorious for tapeworms. I
Yes.
don't know if you saw that Robert Kennedy Jr., he had a brain worm, and that was a tapeworm. His grandfather also, Ted, also had a brain worm. And so it can go in and wreak havoc because it's so easy. The microscopic eggs can go in and just relay themselves all over your body. So it's really easy to catch a worm. I just think that our culture in Western medicine has just denied it. But other cultures like Mexico, Korea, China, Guatemala, the Amish, they all deworm. They know, like the Amish, when you have a bellyache, the first thing they do is stick you in a milk bath because it's probably you have a tapeworm. And then they check to see if the cow got out, because if it's not grass fed and it was able to go to a stream, then it's possible that it has a parasite. And then they just deworm you. Like they go in and they use the herbs and they deworm you. Like it's not a big deal. For some reason here in Western medicine, it is a huge ordeal. They don't care that it costs a fortune for an anti-parasitic that's like $7 in Mexico. It was like $999 for 6 pills for my husband that were $7 in Mexico.
The monetization of our healthcare is really ticking me off. I'm just telling
Yeah.
you.
It's
It's
nuts. It's why we made the Parafy kit so affordable and everything you need. So we realized it wasn't just parasites, it's candida, it's heavy metals. So we went in and I created these herbs, this symphony of herbs that's going to help your ailments. So we've got Parafy, Sustain, and Metal Flush. And so I wanted to make sure that if you're already cleansing your system, that you're going to cleanse these things out while you're deworming. They drop heavy metals and spores. So you really need to go in and clean that up. And then you need a binder. And that was one thing that in Western medicine, when you use charcoal, which is what our binder is, you're actually like using it in an ER setting in a large amount in order to absorb any drugs or alcohol poisoning that someone comes in, not in a microdose. So when I found out you have to bind these things, I'm like, what's binding? Like my first cleanse was terrible because I didn't know you should bind. I didn't know that you should be adding supportive herbs. I didn't know these things. So I made sure that when it was time to start a business, because it was really calling me, I guess that's what I'm meant to do.
Yes, you
So,
are. I mean, obviously, when you did your social media posting and it went viral like that, there's obviously a major problem out there, and you were being that solution. And that's the sweet spot for an entrepreneur, right? So, of course, it's calling you. It's like, you have to do this for
yeah.
sure. So you've talked about Parafy, the parasite cleanse. So I personally, I've done it for 30 days. And one of the things that I want the listeners to know is that it is so gentle. It's not something that is painful. It's not something that is difficult. The hardest part for me was just being consistent with it, which, you know, when you've got a crazy schedule, sometimes that can be a thing. But I mean, I ended up having some stuff that removed itself from me. I mean, I actually sent Kim a picture. She's like, "Oh my God, are you okay? Are you okay?" Because it was just that weird. But
Yeah.
it wasn't something that was difficult to do. And I just know, and as a matter of fact, it got me excited. And so I've actually ordered 2 more, one for my husband and I to be able to do it together. Because I think it's important for
Yeah.
households to do it together because we need to get rid of it or else we pass it back and forth.
Right, exactly. You know, when I decided to pick the herbs, I took all of those things into account. So I knew for me personally, it was very uncomfortable for me to deworm. I had some anxiety and some angina pains. My chest had some pains. And so I brought in hawthornberry for that because the frequency of an herb is going to match that frequency of an ailment. So if you think about when an opera singer sings and breaks glass, it's because her voice is the same frequency of the glass. So if you can bring in that frequency of the ailment, you're going to go ahead and shatter the frequency of that ailment. So if you're having pain, I brought in white willow bark specifically for pain. We need to support our liver. So I brought in dandelion root. I'm trying to remove heavy metals, cilantro. Everything that's in our kit, you can eat it separately. So it's just the way that we actually process our herbs and make our tinctures. That's what makes it so potent, yet it's gentle because I've also been through a lot of cleansing and a lot of issues in my own life. So I wanted to make sure that other people didn't have those issues because I need you to take it for 30 days and I need you to get it out of your system and cleanse and really refresh your body and get a better understanding of what else it could be if parasites aren't your root cause, but you've lost inflammation and you're feeling better. You have that strength to go in and actually figure out more. And that's what happened with me. I got rid of the parasites. I realized that I had Aspergillus niger poisoning, so I had mold toxicity in my system. And then I was able to flush some of that out. And then I was able to get down to the next level, which is I have Lyme. And so it all started to kind of make sense. But I would never have gotten to that point. I would have never taken care of myself, soaked my produce like appropriately. You know, those are the things that like we don't realize as chronically ill people or just in people in general, that like our produce harbors bacteria and pesticides and parasites. So that's really that's a big one for why Mexico deworms, not just because they're water, but also because they know where their produce comes from and we eat their produce. So we
Right.
should be following their structures of what they're doing. They do like 2 mandatory ones in specific, like schools, kind of like how you have to get the jabby jab to get into school,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
They do that with it. Sorry. They do that with it with the parasites. So really it's just looking out for their health.
Yeah, so important. And again, now the awareness is there. So the listeners can't unhear what they've just heard or what they've just seen, right? So you've got to make sure that you're now making the decision to start cleansing yourself and being able to take care of these problems for you and for your family to be able to rectify maybe some of the hidden problems
Yeah.
that you just
Especially
don't
like, sorry.
know. It's okay.
If you have pets, we deworm our dogs. Why aren't we deworming we deworm our animals? Why aren't we deworming ourselves? Like they lick us, they lay with us. I had 3 dogs. One of them had heartworms and he didn't make it very long because he had heartworms. Well, I picked up after him, you know, like I did my best to wash my hands, but it's like really thinking about how you're exposed to them and then what you're going to do to protect your health in the long term.
Yes. Okay. So now that everybody has made the decision that they are going to do a Parafy Parasite Cleanse, tell us about what the process is in creating these tinctures, because you hand make these, right?
We do. We hand make them in bulk. So we figured out which herbs and then we soak our herbs for up to 8 weeks in alcohol. It's grain alcohol, but it's corn based, so it's gluten free. And then we process them with a tea and then we make the tincture with it. And then we have our own machine that you put capsules in and we process our own binders. So it's all in a big manufacturing facility that actually I just got home last night from. We opened it up. It's about 10,000 square feet so that our team there has space and we can fulfill all of our orders as fast as possible. We've sold in upwards of 100,000 kits so far. We ship worldwide, and it's awesome because you can take it ages 3 and up. And we're one of the few tincture parasite companies that children can take.
Oh, that's fantastic. All right. So if you're itching to get a Parafy Cleanse Kit, it might be because you got some worms that itch. But you can go to RogersHood.com to learn more. And also you can get 10% off using code Marcy. How cool is that? That's MARCI to get your 10% off at RogersHood.com. Because it really is. I mean, do it one time and follow gosh, she gives you so much great information too. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that here in just a moment. But you will be guided through this process so simply. But go and do it for 30 days. And I got to tell you, I can guarantee you that you're going to see some interesting, I don't want to say it's pretty cool stuff, but some interesting things remove the itself from your body. So go and do that. So you have had this experience of going viral. What
Mhm.
is your social media commitment, and what are you out there? What's your plan for social media right now? What's happening for you?
I don't have a plan.
It's just happening. That is so cool. And so many of us are like, really? You suck. But you know what?
I
That's the thing, though. When you find a
yeah.
solution to such a big problem, it happens that way.
Yeah. We have almost 1 million well, we actually have over 1 million followers across all of our platforms. And I just want to find things that are interesting and fun for people to watch. I mean, I literally could just sit and make videos all day long being like, you should deworm, you should deworm. But when you bring other people's conversation in, and then you bring in doctors and you bring in showing them what's in their food, it kind of gives it more of a validating experience for people, because no matter what side of the aisle you're on in life, like there's always the people that are deniers and their head is in the sand. And I find that every day. So it's like, well, so you're saying that parasites don't exist in fish. I'm just trying to show you that you should examine your food and be more conscientious about what type of food you put in your body, because this is your temple and you only get one of these. And at the end of the night, you have to deal with those mind things and those weird itching things. You have to deal with it. So why not try and make it easier on yourself? Just really cutting things out that don't serve you is really what, like, the biggest thing is that I can talk to my community about. I also made a very big community specifically because I was chronically ill and had no community. It was just me and my husband for years. I think I was telling you, there were months I didn't even talk with someone. It was just me and my husband because I was so ill that, like, people don't want to be around chronically ill people. So why not have like a community where you can feel accepted and talk about those things with other people?
And helping each other move forward and to become
Mhm.
better, right? To feel better. Absolutely. And I can validate what you were just saying too about what you share on your different platforms. Because before I hopped on here with you today, my husband, I went to him, was like, you got to watch this. It was the one where the girl's showing her salmon and the worms that she found in her salmon.
Yeah, it's
And
bad.
I buy that same salmon and
Yeah.
I'm like, so do I not eat salmon anymore?
No,
Oh,
unfortunately, it's my favorite.
me
Even
too.
my niece's last name is Salmon, so it's
Oh,
even funnier when I'm like, "Get away from me, salmon." No, like, I thought those were normal. I thought those were veins. I thought
yes, me
salmon
too.
was my favorite. Like, I can't when people think I'm hating on it, I'm just hating on it because 'cause I'm mad too. Like, sushi was my favorite,
Yeah.
like, but I can't bring myself to eat the salmon anymore. But, like, wild caught, so everybody yells at me, they're like, "It's farmed." I'm all, "Yo, like, I'm gonna bring a video in and show you it's wild caught too." All fish have worms. It's just normal. Bottom feeders are the worst. Cod, halibut, salmon. Those are the worst. The fishermen who are experts, who work literally right there. I go and talk with them all the time and they're like, yeah, this is normal. What are you talking about, lady?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, so many balloons are being bursted right now.
No, I'm sorry. I am the burster. Trust me. I burst
Yeah.
everyone's bubble all the time. But the whole thing is just to be more conscientious. We're literally eating to have nutrients put into our body that are being stolen. So 90% of nutrients can be stolen by the parasite, leaving you with 10%. How are any of us expecting to feel good when we're only getting 10% of the nutrients? Because they can absorb up to 8 times their weight in heavy metals, in your nutrients. Like, think about when you take something like I take Synthroid. Well, I was only getting 10% of the Synthroid. Of course, my thyroid is off, right?
Yep.
Of course, I'm having thyroid issues. My thyroid isn't getting the medication that it needs because it was being absorbed into a parasite.
Oh my goodness. So everything that your body is faced with will be able to be faced better when you are worm and mold and parasite and all this other
Yeah,
egads free.
yeah, it's
Goodness.
crazy.
Yeah. Okay, so tribe, now you can know and understand why she is called the Worm Queen, right? She has earned this title 100%. So I would like for you to just kind of take a second and think and go back and consider one thing that you wish that you could share with yourself before you became ill and before you had all those surgeries that changed your life forever. What would
I
you
just
say?
I just really would like to tell myself that everything will be okay. I think having that knowledge and understanding that like what I was going through was kind of normal society at this point, and just to know that like you're going to be okay at the end of this. And there were moments while I was healing out in the woods that I could feel that a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I can understand why this would be a very emotional part in your story. Um, because we feel so human, right?
Mhm.
When we are considering our mortality,
Yeah,
it can
it
be a
was
very
bad.
emotional. Yeah,
I was really sick. I don't know if you've seen the before and after pictures, but
I have
yeah,
drastic.
very. Even
Uh,
my mental health, like my whole life, that was a big one, my mental health. I wanted to make sure because I have severe PTSD from a few things, but specifically my health. So that was a big one for me. I really wanted to get my mental health under control.
yeah.
I was willing to do anything.
I would say that mental health is the number one place that everybody needs to start.
Mm-hmm.
Because if
I,
your mind's not right, then you're not going to be able to have the strength, the fortitude, or the mind and willpower
yeah.
to figure all the other stuff out, right? So yeah, that mental health aspect is huge.
And
I
your
am,
gut plays a part in that.
yeah,
So if you don't have your gut right, if you're not eating right, like your mental health is going to be off because really they say this is your brain, but like your gut really is your first brain.
yes, yes. Yeah, that gut brain or gut brain access is a real thing. It's a real
Yeah.
thing. Okay, so let's talk a little bit how you, having grown so quickly, how have you been able to keep the main thing? And what are the Rogers Hood Company's mission, values, and your future plans moving forward?
The main thing, like being parasites, the main
Mm.
thing.
Being, no, that servant leader, that servant that is providing the information to people and not getting distracted by the noise. Because I know you're receiving a lot of noise too.
Yeah.
So how do you keep your focus on, what your purpose is with Rogers Hood?
I feel like being like when I'm in the comments and the DMs and I'm reading people and how not well they are and seeing it, it's really a big push for me. When I'm out in the real world, when I'm not on my phone and I'm not in the social media, it's like all I can do to not tell someone, let me give you a kit. Because it really, you can see it. Like once you start to cleanse and you know this, you can see someone that's not well and you're like, just try this, you know? So I do have business cards and I do hand them out. And there are usually whenever I go somewhere, I'll usually send that person a kit. If they've made an impact on me, I sent out quite a few in-person kits to people. I just, this is my goal. I'm here. I know this is why I'm on this earth. Like, I know this is my mission. I know this is why I
Yes.
was put here. everything has always led to this, all the way down to like, I loved cloves. I loved the way cloves made me feel growing up. Like I smoked clove cigarettes, and just the smell of it reminds me of my childhood. Like I know that this is why I was here. And so I feel like that kind of helps guide me and helps me guide other people, because we do have around 30 employees and all of these followers, and just making sure that I stay as connected as possible is really important to me, because we do go viral. And when we go viral, like just from October until now, we've gained 100,000 followers on Instagram. So it's busy, and just making sure you can bring in the right people to do this with me, because it's not just about me. This is now about like all of us figuring out a better health solution than what we've been told and indoctrinated into believing is how it should be. Like herbs have a purpose in our life, and there's a structure of those herbs that have been mimicked by other places that have been synthetically driven. And the difference is that our bodies know how to process herbs where they don't necessarily know how to process the synthetics. And that was really what I figured out from my own journey with endometriosis, is that my body didn't know how to process the synthetic driven medications, doesn't know what to do, but my body processes herbs really well. So, and just educating, I'm not here to like have haters, but when I have a hater, it's like, just why don't you go research? Because it's so much easier for you just to see that other countries use herbs, like Germany uses herbs and wormwood for MS patients. And then bringing studies in, like they found that 100% of the cadavers that had MS had tapeworm. So what's the connection when you're able to show a medicine connection? What's the connection? Just really making people understand that this is the only body you get. And you
Yes.
got to take care of it.
Yeah, that is so important right there, that point. And, there's a reason why whether it's a pharmaceutical or it's a synthetic anything, why there is the side effects or the
Mhm.
warning labels that are put on those. It's because it's not something that the body is going to just accept naturally, where the
Yeah.
herbs were created by God days before he created us. And we truly believe that they were put here to be our medicine,
Yeah.
right? It's God's pharmacy.
Did you know that when you're outside and you shed and you grow something like dandelions, that is the earth telling you that that's what your body needs?
Mhm.
And it's funny because Oregon grapefruit is all over my property, all over. And it's my favorite anti-parasitic. Wormwood is like the heavy one. Oregon grapefruit is an anti-parasitic as well as a burbine, which helps with inflammation, curbs your appetite. I have usnea hanging all over my trees where I live. And so that's a antibacteria, antifungal. So Mother Nature knows really best. And this is the way our ancestors dewormed. This is the way our ancestors helped their health. This is kind of the way that the world should be looking at their ailments versus just, oh, well, take this pill, it'll help. Well, after 13 surgeries, whatever they were doing to me was no longer serving me. It was no longer helping me. And so if I had just done one cleanse or even known about it, I could have saved 9 organs. I lost
Yes.
9 organs. I mean, that's a lot. I lost my appendix, which I found out that I had pinworms in, because 90% of appendicitis are from pinworms, because that's where they live, is the appendix. So really, it's just education. And I give all of my education for free.
See,
All of
and
my
that's what I love about you. I love that about you. I actually had the honor of being a fly on a wall when you and my husband were having a conversation, and you both have these brains that just blow mine away, right? And it was so fun to hear the knowledge that you have and how you are so ready to give it out. And to kids, that's one of your callings, is to be a teacher. I truly
Yeah.
believe that you are a teacher is part of your purpose. And so, guys, you can actually go to marcynettles.com/freebies for several of Kim's free ebooks. We'll get you a link for that so that you can learn all about parasites, worms, mold, cleansing, and even food and lifestyle
Yeah.
information. So that's marcynettles.com/freebies. We'll make sure and get that shipped right over to you so that you can start this journey through your awareness and through your education like what we've been talking about, because that is seriously, she is such a servant that she doesn't charge for any of her knowledge.
Nope.
Nothing. The Parafy Parasite Cleanse
Yep.
is where she makes her money. And again, you can get 10% off going to RogersHood.com and using the code Marcy, it's Marcy with an I, to get that 10% off to get your parasite cleanse started. So, Kim, before we sign off here today, what would be your final words to the What Now tribe?
Just take care of your body. Just don't allow yourself to get gaslit, and know that you really do know what's going on with yourself. And there are people out there that can help you if you are looking for help. We're all community here to kind of help everybody self-heal and to understand that there's more to it than just aches and pains. Like, you can do this. It's really easy. I tried to make it as easy as possible for everyone.
Amen. And you sure did. And as a matter of fact, speaking of communities, where's the best place for the tribe to connect and follow you?
Well, Mrs. Rogers Hood is my handle on TikTok, and then Mrs. Rogers Hood. And I feel for Mrs. Rogers Hood over there because she must get some things.
I can only imagine the photos that come through.
Yeah. We were
Okay.
gonna ask her to take. I was gonna ask her to take the name, but I'm like, no, it's okay.
Oh, but how funny is that? Well, you know what? If she was having a problem with it, she'd probably hit you up and say,
Once she hit
can
me
we?
up once, and I'm like, there's nothing I can do. I'm like, I am viral, and I'm like, I'm sorry. I make sure I tell everyone to put a dot. I do.
Right. Right. And that's on which platform that needs the dot?
Instagram.
Insta. Okay.
Where
We'll
the
make
pictures can come.
Okay, I'll make sure that those links are in the comments for the podcast. And by the way, tribe, you are going to be able to listen to this episode on any of the platforms for podcasting for the audio, as well as be able to watch our craziness on YouTube at Marcy Nettles on YouTube. So we are so happy that you spent this time with us. And Kim, thank you for sharing your knowledge, for sharing your personal story, being able to get vulnerable with us to help people understand the importance of parasite cleansing, and then also for being so free with the knowledge that you've gained in your journey. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome.